Hey, Meredith, how are you? Marco, Peter. Um, I am missing the key person in this whole thing. And actually, I need some glasses. So I literally just had dinner because I hadn't eaten for about 24 hours. So I apologize. I'm not as prepared as normal. Um, Pete, where's Richard? Have we lost him? It's not like Richard to be late to his own party. Ah, Richard, are you missing me?
Not really.
You are. I know you
You
are.
can see me?
I can see you. I can hear you. You are the most beautiful person ever.
Oh, okay.
Do you want a hug? Should we have a hug, Richard?
Well, a virtual hug would be cool.
Hey, come on, let's have a virtual hug. So,
I'm just gonna get some background light here.
yeah,
Right.
I
Okay,
like
right.
a halo. It's like your god.
Yeah,
And
do you want me to change that?
no, no, I am super happy to I'm now trying to do things and talk to you at the same time. Apparently, I cannot multitask anymore. That's what happens when you have like three daiquiris in quick succession because you're super thirsty and you're really hungry, and like what happens. So, I am sure you need no introduction because you are the legend that is Richard Seale. And Richard and I'm going to tell you the story about how Richard and I met. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a hugger. I love a hug. Hugs are the best things ever. And I remember Brucey Bonusball, who is part of Marusha Beverages, who is the importer for Foursquare in the UK, came to me at Selfridges and he's going, I'm going to bring Richard Seale in to see you. I said, oh my God, that'd be awesome. You know, like, I really love his rum. So that'd be really, really cool. And so Richard came in. And I'm not the most serious person. And Richard is probably, I actually think you couldn't get two more different people than myself and Richard.
That's probably true.
And I was just like, and Richard was like, what is this thing that's just attacked me? And I said to Bruce, I think a couple of days later, I was like, one day Richard Seale's going to hug me. And Bruce goes, Richard doesn't hug people. I was like, he will soon. And now Richard, if you go and look on Facebook on, I think, Ministry of Rum, Richard has actually admitted he misses my hugs. So, you know, I think it's appropriate that Richard joins me on Sunday as my closing tasting for the day. And Richard's like, I forgot about the rum. And we taste some rum because actually Richard's is probably one of the people that really got me to love rum. And you know, he for all his seriousness, he has the most amazing passion. And I think for me, and the reason we work so closely together is that I just think and for any of you that are whiskey lovers, you know, if you're going to try one whiskey or one rum to convert you, for me, it's Richard's. And, you know, yeah, the end of today's sessions for me, Marco, I've been here since 11 o'clock. I'm about to die. So, you know, Richard, I kind of guess we're going to taste and we're going to chat, but I want to understand how, you know, what the distilleries in the family, but, you know, what really made you suddenly go, rum's it. This is what I want to dedicate my life to.
Well, what happened was I was always going to join the family business. And I think that was a little bit of a blowback from, I'm sure my grandfather would have loved nothing for my father to have been a banker or a lawyer or something. Because you got to understand, it's a very humble origin. It's a very small business. And I'm sure he would have.
Gail?
No, I was cooking something, but that's to remind Gail to go and check it.
Is Gail now cooking?
Well, she's taking what I've cooked out of the oven, I hope. In fact, let me just I'm going to message her.
Do you want me to message her and just say, take it out the oven? I'm actually going to message Gail to say, take it out the oven.
Check my pie.
And this is what check your pie. What pie are you making?
I'm making a chicken and leek pie.
Chicken and leek? Did you saute your leek in some white wine? Because I find that really lovely.
No, I sauteed it in some bacon fat.
That's kind of good. White wine. Flash of white wine, please, next to them, Richard. Yeah.
I did not use white wine in this recipe.
That is a fault.
Well, we'll see. The eating will come later.
Sorry, Richard.
But yes, going back. So my father definitely. I was always going to join the business. I was always going to join the business. But the business, understand that, and this is very similar. One thing with you can relate very much the rum blenders with the whiskey blenders. So the same way all the brands really came about from the traders, the merchant traders. It's the same way with rum. I mean, you can see it in Barbados, whether it's my family or go with the Jamaica, it's Ray and Nephew and Fred Myers and all the rest of it. And so you can see this, the distilleries, the heritage of the distillery is a distillery putting out commodities, sugar, molasses, rum. I mean, it's an agricultural operation, not a marketing brand operation. We tend to think of products as the brand and the factory behind the brand, but in spirits, it came the other way around. This was an agricultural product first, and eventually became a branded product. So our business was broader than rum. We traded, other provisions, and that's how come, for example, we trade falernum, because you'd bottle all kinds of products, bulk. Like we did gin back in the day. You'd bring in a bulk gin, and the same thing with Martin Dorley. Martin Dorley was a merchant blender, and Martin Dorley was very famous for importing cognac and sherry and go back far enough, it would come in cask and things like that. What happened was I joined. I'd work every sort of Christmas and summer and all the rest of it, but I officially joined in '93. One of the reasons I didn't join straight out of sort of school, university, is because one of the things my father did is he worked outside first. So he was like, no, you have to go and work outside first and get some experience, and then you join the family business. So I joined in '93. And what happened in '93 is he bought the Martin Dorley brand. And this was huge because Martin Dorley brand was a very, very prestigious brand in Barbados, but it had merged in the '70s with Alianatha. And then Alianatha was part of a bigger group which got into financial trouble by the late '80s, early '90s. And so they were sort of selling off their best assets. And the brand had been in sort of decline for a while because the parent company was in financial trouble. Anyway, long story short.
Long story short, Richard, that's
yes, we buy this brand. So we buy the Martin Dorley brand and appreciate, just like in the rest of the spirits world, lots of consolidation over the years. I mean, you go back 1950s, there's 20 merchant blenders besides, my father, Martin Dorley, Alianatha. We've preserved a few. If you come to Barbados, you can buy things like Yes Field and
Is that an
Alianatha.
invitation, Richard?
Sorry?
Is that an invitation?
Sorry?
To come to Barbados?
Is that what? Oh yeah. So so we have we which we don't export. We have a few brands. So when he bought that brand, that really changed. That was such a huge. I don't think my father had ever bought anything. And he bought brands over the years, but that was like mega. And so suddenly, this business I was joining had made this massive investment in rum. And that changed. One of the things that really changed was two aspects of it were, one, Martin Dorley was an aged rum brand. I mean, it's not that old, but it's 5 years. And, at that time, the oldest thing we bottled was 2 years. And so you had to invest in stocks. Well, if you were going to invest in stocks, you couldn't really depend. That's when we made, look, we've got to distill. And the second thing is that because Martin Dorley had a heritage of exporting, we believe it was the first bottle brand he exported from Barbados. It suddenly dawned on us Dawn, but that was, there was an export market for rum. I mean, before that, it was, it was really, I wouldn't say we didn't know it was an export market, but it really was a very daunting thought of export. And a lot of, some of the way I sometimes describe it is my grandfather would have never conceived of exporting rum. Why my father thought about exporting was a little bit the diaspora. So it was like, oh yeah, there's Barbados in London, so let's export rum to London. There's some, Barbados in New York, so let's export rum to New York. It was really only from about the 90s and acquiring Martin Dorley and working with the Forerunner to Mauritius that we sort of thought, no, you know what, we're going to sell rum to English people and Scottish people. So that really was that was the key to really me joining the business. Didn't mean me the business. And don't get me wrong, I could have, like my father, he will tell you straight, he's not a rum maker, he's not technical, but he's good at marketing. I mean, we, incredibly successful in building the rum brands in Barbados. So I mean, I could have been just on the marketing side, but I think. But you would be good at
marketing, Richard. I mean, you have a natural passion for marketing. I see it in everything you do. It's all about marketing,
So I think it was just a natural instinct then to go on the rum making side, and that's really what changed it. And the other aspect of that was that also influenced me was, Martin Dorley was this very old brand, very prestige brand. And just like all the old Scotch whiskey guys, I always laugh because, when the famous old additives in Scotch whiskey, well, two famous old additives in Scotch whiskey, prune wine and sherry paxarette, both of those used right through in the West Indies as well. But I laugh particularly with the prune wine because we bought them both from the same place. Thompson Prune Wine Export in Ireland supplied the prune wine to the Scotch whiskey blenders and also supplied the prune wine to the West Indies. Absolutely true. But the amusing thing, when we purchased Dorley's, this was this very old brand from 1920, very prestigious, very looked up to, and they did none of these things. And so it was like, it was. I think it was very influential on me. Looking back, I think that's what made me think.
And what I kind of like to ask is that, in the tasting today, we've got 3 Dorleys and 3 Foursquare. Just for people that don't really know you and what you do, can you just kind of say, succinctly what sort of Dorleys is and what Foursquare is? Because I think they.
Well, again, that's also very easy to explain kind of to the Scotch whiskey crowd because, so Martin Dorley was, a merchant blender, just like the blended whiskey brands. And the same way that you have the sort of vertical integration, we purchased an old sugar estate that, hadn't made rum in, over 100 years, but had closed as making sugar in 88, sort of refurbished the distillery side of it. But then launched on a distillery brand. So, and again, it's the same thing with Scotch whiskey because, a lot of people don't realize, like Glenfiddich's kind of your first distillery brand, in Scotch whiskey, it was always done through the blenders or, to bottle it independently. And that's actually the one that's ahead of us all, if you like, was sort of, Ray and Nephew and Appleton, because Ray and Nephew purchased Appleton in 1917. And I think they were put in Appleton as a brand from about the 1940s.
I mean, it was amazing. We had a really great chat with Joy yesterday. I found out that Joy actually tried to get a helicopter pilot drunk while he was flying her over New Zealand. So, I love that lady already. And then, my love went from here to kind of like there. She was like,
yeah.
Appleton. I was like, he was flying a helicopter. And I love that. I love
Fly it better.
Yeah, fly it better. That's good. Then she goes to me, when you come to Jamaica, I'm going to take you whitewater rafting. I was like, Joy, whitewater rafts? I mean, now I'm like, my God, this woman is unstoppable. And she's like, yeah, we'll just have a glass and we'll drink it as we go down the rapids. I'm like, those aren't rapids. Those are gentle waves.
Joy is particularly one of those people that, the kind of the public persona is a little quite different from the private persona.
Awesome. She's
She's very formal when she's out there representing that. But if you know her, and I don't know her that well, but I know her a little bit, we would hang out behind the scenes when we go to the shows and stuff. And she's a lot of fun behind the scenes.
And I think that's for me what rum is. Rum, and I've said this about 100 times on this virtual whiskey show. You know, I think Danielle from Angostura, Danielle said it perfectly. If you're drinking a rum and it doesn't make you smile, you're drinking the wrong rum. And you know, and I think the one thing.
Well, Dave Brewman sort of said something like that. Despite all the efforts to, you know, make rum serious, you know, once we say the word rum,
you smile.
We have a smile, and it's very important because, you know, one of the things I do, for example, is, you know, we relish, obviously, our West Indian culture and the way rum pervades the culture and the way rum is fun. But I'm very careful not to caricature that. So you'll never see me, you know, that's why when I come to a rum show, you know, I'll try to look exactly. You'll never see me in a tiki shirt. You'll never see me in a...
And that's why I brought...
You know, pirate outfit or, you know, because that's just, for me, that's kind of just a little bit sort of patronizing and a little bit... you know, cliched, and you're trying to caricature. Our culture is a little more sophisticated.
And I think that's kind of, for me, what you guys do so well and why you appeal to the audience.
We mix the seriousness and the passion and the fun in a very complex way.
So I would say, and Richard will allow me to say this because I get away with a lot of shit with Richard, Gail is the fun. And Richard is the serious.
No, Gail's the people person.
And you know, I think, you know, if we're going to kind of maybe start a little tasting, because Andrew, who is joining us today, so Andrew's one of our best virtual tasting clients, I guess I can say. And, you know, and he said that because I've been so excited about rum, he's purchased the tasting pack. And thank you, because you know, we need more Andrews in our world, because the Andrews are going to push rum even further than it already is. So, you know, I mean, like the first rum we're looking at is the Davies XO, and I guess this was probably the first of your brands that are really...
Yeah, so I often get asked, like, you know, what's the favorite? And I answer, it's not a favorite, but kind of the most important rum to me, for me, has been the XO, because, you know, when we bought the Davies brand, it was the first rum that I created. And it was just around the time that we started to export. So it was kind of perfect timing. We didn't create it for export. We were creating it, and then, you know, we started export. And it was kind of the rum that kind of put us on the map, I like to say, that sort of, you know, gave people attention to us and sort of gave a level of respect and sort of took notice of us.
And actually, it's something I've never asked you. Did you take XO from like the cognac perspective? Why did you kind of go?
No, it was, you laugh because it was pure, this is the marketing side. So Mount Gay had launched their extra old, and they used to call it
people Mount Gay.
Yeah, so they had launched their extra old, and that was basically, we were like, okay, well, we're gonna have a rum in that category, and you know, we called it XO just to, you know, and it did match because the minimum was 6. But it really, I couldn't honestly say that was why I called it XO. I mean, XO was 6 at the time. It was more of, and the other reason why I did is because, and I switched away from that, which you will see. What happened was, we had done, Davies 5 was kind of the premium Davies. And because I'd used sherry cask, I thought I'd deliberately not put an age on it. Because I deliberately sort of draw your attention. Oh, well, why is it called XO? Well, it's called XO because it's really special, because it's a double maturation. So there was a little bit of that. And then, as I say, I've shied away from that and said, no. Sort of true to the heritage of Davies, we put an age statement. So everything else has come with an age statement, with the 12 and the 14. But at the time, I kind of did want to draw some attention away from, you know, why is this a good rum? Oh, because let's talk about the sherry cask.
And you know, I think you're kind of for me in the rum world, you're probably the person I always associate with really working very well with wine casks. And I actually, people that have, who know me and have been on the kind of last couple of sessions that I've been doing, I'm not a fan of wine casks in whiskey, because I do think that they haven't quite got that sourcing right. I do think that it just sits on the whiskey, it doesn't really integrate. Something about rum, actually, and the Zinfandel cask that you did 3 years ago now, or 4 years ago, for me was fantastic. And Richard has.
Well, it's funny. Ralphie said something very similar. He sort of was like, the wine cask seemed to work better in rum. He feels. I mean, I do think there's a couple of things going on there, I would say. The first thing, the person who guided me from the very beginning was Jim Swan, which I think would be well known to every whiskey guru. I mean, let me take a little step back and understand a little bit why we use wine casks, because culture is very important. And I think, for example, I would be, there's some bourbon done in wine casks, and I actually find that a bit jarring. And let me explain why. Bourbon's culture is new oak. Why? Because bourbon's in country full of oak. And cognac's uses new oak in their formulations because, again, they've got oak. The heritage of the West Indies and Scotland is refill casks. Because in the case, Barbados, we have no trees. And we have this heritage of bringing in oak staves for building everything for the sugar and the molasses and the rum. And of course, because they're expensive and important, we constantly refill them. And of course, we'd refill everything. So the cognac barrels came in, and the sherry barrels, Madeira, refill. So that's our culture, and it's so I think whether something jars or doesn't do right, I'd actually even take a step back, even before it can culturally jar, even before it jars on the palate.
And it makes sense, you and I get why sherry was used in Scotland, and I understand exactly, I've been on a crash course on learning about rum for the last 3-4 years. And, I've really, in the last actually probably 6 months, I've had to kind of really kind of learn more and more and more. And I am learning because I'm passionate. I'm learning because I'm excited. And I'm learning because I think rum is probably my spiritual spirit, if we're gonna say anything.
Yeah. Sorry. So I was just saying, I think the other aspect in terms of my approach is tied up in that word finish. I think that a lot of the motivations with some of the whiskey brands with the wine cask is purely novelty. I can remember one whiskey blender basically asking me about some casks, and you could tell that he couldn't give a rat's ass whether he used rum casks. You could tell that he was under pressure from the marketing department to use something. In other words, as far as he's concerned, his whiskey didn't need any rum casks.
And it's interesting, and we're having a later on this week where we're looking at the provenance of the cask, because I think it's hugely important. And Richard and I have had a lot of talks about sulfur and how to kind of stop that in cask. But and Andrew's 100% right. If you pick up a Dorley's XO, you get that toffee, that raisin, that vanilla, and especially that raisin is that sherry cask influence. And I've just actually picked up the 12-year-old, which again it's another level up. It's got this freshness, and I actually do think that's something I always find in all your rums is this beautiful line of acidity, which is. And those of you who have been doing some tastings with me over the last couple of days, acidity for me is actually super key in spirits as much as it is in wine. And it's not too much, the perfect amount. Like everything in life's balance. And
so our approach with cask was really, I think, a little more legit, as in I want to go out and buy good casks. So that's why, for example, with Doherty's 12, there's no finish. We literally blend rums that are 12 years in ex-bourbon and rums that are 12 years in ex-bourbon, ex-Madeira. So there's no motivation here to use the cask as a novelty. fuck's sake take 12 years to come out with after buying the cask? But the idea is let's go out and buy really good casks. And so the approach is, and that's where we do a lot of refill casks. So for example, something like Criterion, which was so successful, that's completely all done in refill cognac casks. Because again, it's about the cask, not about this sort of novelty of, oh, well, let's take this, what is a perfectly good whiskey and just shock it with some freshly arrived.
And that's right.
Cask.
It's the word shock. And I think actually that I'm going to use that because I do think that you are shocking it. You are shocking them. This is a living and breathing product. Whatever we want to look at it, it's interacting with its atmosphere. And and I actually do wonder, especially on this 12-year-old, because of the Madeira cask influence, is that where the acidity is coming? Because if I compare this to the XO is a little bit fatter, it's a little bit softer. And yes, of course, you have the added extra age. But, for me, that freshness, Madeira has acidity. And it's in that cask. And it must be drawing something through into the...
A little. I'm going to say most of the acidity is coming, though, from the fat still. I would honestly say. I can't imagine that the acidity is the dominant part of the acidity is coming from the fat that I'm using a wine cask. Because the thing about with the Caribbean, of course, by the time I get the wine cask, I promise you they're quite different.
Well, you didn't leave a bit of Madeira in this? What the hell? What are you thinking?
No, they didn't give me any free. They didn't give me any free Sauternes. I was hoping my Sauternes cask would come with a bit of Sauternes swirling around at the last. No. But just to make the point about casks, I've started a couple of years now bringing some Syrah casks from Chile. And it's a pretty good example of the approach. What I mean is while I do enjoy Syrah, it wasn't me searching out, oh, I want a Syrah cask. What it was is me searching out, I want a very expensive French oak cask that I can't afford to buy. So what happens in Chile, the Montes is like, one of the best winemakers on the planet. So they go and they buy the creme de la creme French oak casks. They don't have a great outlet for them when they're finished in their program. So I'm like, yes, I'll take them. But the first thing we do with them was we steam them.
And we were talking a lot about this actually, because, we were talking a lot about sulfur. And, for me, sulfur is becoming more and more of an issue in the spirits I try. And I am hugely sensitive to sulfur. And I asked you, only a couple of months ago, how do you not have that, especially working with wine casks? Because either wine, by inherently how it's made, they add sulfur through the process. And also...
Yes, that one's the hard to avoid one. And for example, in Hereditas, sherry cask, there is some sulfur in the wine and that lingers and that's there. For me, that's less problematic than obviously if there's sulfur in the cask. If there's sulfur in the cask, for me, that's it. It's gone. No good. But yes, sometimes you can get a wine cask that the wine itself was a little bit, or it left too much of a sulfuriness in the cask, and but you can get away with that. And there are a few little tricks to deal with it. I don't know.
Come on, Richard. Help the producers.
Well, if you put rum or whiskey in a sherry cask, and you think it's a little bit sulfury, guess what the best thing to do with it is? No, put it in a brand new, not brand new, but put it in a charred cask.
Is that because the charcoal?
Put it in a very heavy char, or yes.
And is it drawing it out? Is that because it's the filter and it's drawing it out? That's super interesting. Because when I have sulfur in a wine, I drop a penny in it.
If you take, for example, Destino, which is 14 years old, 12 years Madeira, 2 years bourbon cask. It wasn't so much that there was anything wrong with it, the 12 years. The 12-year rum is what goes in. It wasn't sulfur or whatever. But it's quite magic what then taking that 12-year-old Madeira cask, 100% in Madeira cask, and doing the reverse and putting it in a bourbon cask. And it was an old bourbon cask, but there's still some char there in it. And so it still has some subtractive life, especially in our climate. And it was quite amazing what it did to Destino. I think you know this.
No, I don't know Destino. I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, what is that thing? I mean, I don't. I mean, we may even have some to taste. Do we have no? Do we have any Destino? Oh, we have no Destino.
But see, this is the problem with the, you know, one of the things is I get this reputation for transparency, and I'm suddenly going, hang on a minute, because I'm not really about so much about transparency as I'm about authenticity or, you know, truthfulness. So in other words, you know, I get pissed if you sell your rum liqueur as a rum, but I actually like to keep some secrets.
So
you know?
I love it. You know, yeah. So I mean, and Andrew's really right on that 12-year-old. It has this beautiful ginger. It's got that super spice, and you know, I'm actually a very firm believer in I should be able to put my nose in a glass to be able to tell where it's from. And I actually probably believe I could probably blind taste Foursquare or Mount Gaiash, or you know, the sort of
yeah, and that's the other thing about spirit making that sort of really drives my philosophy. It's, you know, we're doing these different casts and stuff like that, and you know, sometimes people say, "Well, you're experiment." You know, I hate the word experiment or anything like that. One of the things that we're trying to do is always, you know, push the envelope by using quality casts. So it's not an experiment; it's about me trying to go and find out. So when I brought in the Sauternes cast, why am I bringing the Sauternes cast? Because they're really, really good casts, or those casts from Chile. So it's all about pushing the envelope in terms of quality, but it has to be a Barbados rum. It has to be a Foursquare rum. I can make something different for the sake of difference.
That's the thing, you know, and that's where I think, you know, everyone who's probably joined the last couple of sessions knows my love of marketing and marketeers, and I am the woman that when one of my kind of reps comes to me, or my guys comes to me and say, Dawn, can we bring one of our marketing team in to present to you? I'm like, no fucking PowerPoints, and this is a picture of a pretty bottle, and then that's it. Andrew, really good, really good question actually. How do you prefer to drink rum? Drinking it for pleasure, not just to appreciate? I think it really depends on the rum. Is probably my first answer. You know, and I think Mitch and I talked about it in a session we did yesterday. Rum is the most versatile spirit in the world. It's a spirit that you can equally enjoy in a daiquiri. I've had 3 today. They've been fabulous. All the way up to just sipping it after dinner, on ice, not on ice, you know. And for me, it really depends. So Richard just made a rum a year ago that launched, which is a rum called Veritas, which I'm actually going to... Is that the pie?
Pie.
Oh, Gail, you've done a good... Did you actually put little diamonds on that? Were you trying to...
I put the letter pi on it. That there in the middle.
The only person in the world, and when he says the letter pi, he means the symbol. Yeah, and now, right now, Richard, you know, Gail, sort him out.
I think Gail
sort him out. He needs some more flamingos in his life. I'm going to send you some flamingos, Richard. Richard.
Can you see it? That's my little pie there, the little symbol.
Richard,
yeah, pie on pie.
We need to get you out. You've been in lockdown too long. Your Corona gate is not working for you. Did you actually put pie on your pie? Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Right, I don't, guys. I'm sorry, I really don't know where to go with this, Richard.
I was a mathematician.
Were you actually, Richard? Were you actually? I would never have guessed that ever. Pie on your pie. Just eat the damn pie. Put a fucking star on it like a normal person, for God's sakes, man. Gail, sort him out. Richard's pie is ready, everyone. See you later, Richard. And you know, I want to move on to the 14-year-old. Andrew's already moved on to the 14-year-old. Good man. Because I remember, I was talking about Veritas actually 5 seconds ago. So obviously the pie back to me. And Veritas for me is one of those rums that when I tasted it, I really, really loved it. And Veritas is a blend of Jamaica and Barbados rums. And it's just a beautiful rum to use in a daiquiri, a cocktail. And then yet you have something like the 14-year-old. That was a nice segue, Dawn. Well done. Pat on that. Where, yeah, and I remember when Richard got me to taste this 2 years ago at Rumfest. Yay, flamingo, Gail! I love Gail. Gail, come on screen. We need to make Richard fun again.
This session is deteriorating.
And you didn't think it would? You honestly thought it wasn't going to deteriorate at some point?
Trying to serious talk about cats and stuff.
Okay, don't make me laugh. So, okay, I'll bring it back to rum, not flamingos. Gail, I love the flamingo. And you came to me a year ago, or 2 years ago at Rumfest and gave me Dorley's 14. And what makes me laugh is every time Richard makes something, I'm like, oh my God, that's the best ever. I remember the first time he gave me the 2005 Dorley's, I was like, the best ever. And then he gave me the 6. I was like, no, it can't be better. And then it's like the 7. I was like, no, stop. And the 14, I was so gutted because we wanted to make this our spirit of the year, but you weren't going to get stock over to us in time. And Sakinda, who I know is somewhere lurking in the background, and I were like, do you think we can make this our spirit of the year when no one's tasted it? And I was like, yeah. And it's such a freaking awesome rum.
So the lovely thing about the 14, and I'll take a step back with XO and 12. You'll notice XO and 12 are now 43. So when we first brought them, it was 40%. So sometimes I'm asked, are there things that you regret? And so one of the things I do regret is when I first came to the market is listening to the marketeers, because when you first came with rum, it was like, well, rum has to be, it can be very expensive, and and taxes here are really high. So, they want, people wanted us to do rum at 37.5, and we thought we were really brave doing it at 40. And it was kind of one of those things I look back on and I thought, that's really bad, because in Barbados the base is really 43. And so when I did 14, I already had my plan to return XO and 12 to 43, but I also decided that I would completely take the shackles off completely and do the 14 at what I wanted to do it at, and that's how I ended up at 48. And then give a rat's
and we were actually talking about this yesterday on one of the sessions, and all the sessions have now become one big blur because I've been on the screen for about 10 hours more today. And, we were really talking about that idea of, and Sakinda and I actually, both of us, we love that little bit more alcohol because I think it just carries flavor so much better.
Go back to the old whiskey blenders. Go back, and they did, 44 to 48. 40 is something that's been commercially
and 40 is a soft, it's a roundness, and I think that just little bit extra ABV, and you think in your head, what's the difference?
Well, I think the other thing too, I discussed this a couple of times, I think one of the things that you have to appreciate as well with spirits is that when you go from 48 to 40, you're not, or from cask strength to 40, you're not just diluting. Dilution is not the only thing that's going on. You're actually changing the balance of the spirit because of the relative solubility of what's in there. And of course, you compound that enormously when you go down to 40 and you have this cloudy spirit and you have to chill filter it. So you're going to more aggressively chill filter something at 40% than you are at 48. And of course, you're not going to chill filter at all at cask strength. And so it's not just dilution that's going on. And you're changing your product. And that can be more negative with certain, there's some, which we know some products stand up better to dilution, and it's all about their their competition.
That's the thing that's often talked about a lot in whiskey is non-chill filtered, and we were talking about it earlier, and it's about taking out. Ollie Chilton, who's our blender for Elixir Distillers, he's super passionate. He doesn't want to chill filter because he says, you're not adding is okay. Taking out is not good.
Well, it's really, the two aspects are horrible when you think about them. You make a product and you have to dilute it. That's terrible. And you make a product, and all those lovely, complex, long chain fatty esters, in which you very carefully try to make, whether fermentation, distillation, through aging, and you spend all that time putting them together, and then you're going to go and take them out. I mean, it's lunacy. And one of the things that you find, for example, whiskey seems to be stable without chill filtering, I think about low 50s or something like that. But if you have a pot still rum, very old pot still rum, and of course old for us, 10, 12 years old, which is like, 25 years in Scotland, you need to be at least about 55, 56, 57. It's amazing. So to chill filter rum is really even more criminal than chill filtering.
You heard
whiskey. And we try to sail as close to the edge as we can. And of course, sometimes we absolutely crash, like Criterion, for example. Haze like crazy. But, we really, even when something like XO, which we have to chill filter at 43, we really push our luck. And we do that because, we're little, we're not a big, million case brand that's got to worry about loads of cloudy bottles out there. But yeah, I mean, we really...
It's very interesting because a lot of times our warehouse team over here are amazing. And, anything that looks even vaguely suspicious, they're in my office going, is this okay? And, especially when it gets cold, suddenly they're in my office every minute going, is this all right? Is this all right? And I'm like, I want to see those fatty particles. That makes me happy. I'm like...
I had an importer, a Northern European importer, message me, send me pictures, and say, we can't sell this product. And I think it was 2004 or something. No, maybe, was it Cash? No, I think it was one of the, maybe Zin or something like that. And I literally wrote back and I said, do you understand that non-chill filter is
you should
not
say,
a marketing slogan?
If you don't want it, don't have it. And that's it, those little, so any of you guys, when you see those little fatty acids, it's like tartaric acid in wine, like when I see those little sugar crystals at the bottom of a wine bottle, I'm like, bring them on, let them stay there. They are happy little things. They're super relaxed down there. Let those little crystals sit there. And it's the same with the floaters, as we call them, as it gets cold. I'd rather see them than not see them, because for me, that's the texture. Almost thinking of when you put olive oil in water, you get those little blobs. It's the same freaking thing. It's just it's the texture, but it's kind of got a little cold, and it wants a little bit of warmth to just let it kind of go out and breathe. And and I think I love the fact that Andrew's like, Nobility. I'm on Nobility now. And Nobility is the latest, not quite the latest release from you. It was.
It's the latest in the ECS series of what we call the green series, but it became purple because of Nobility. But in other words, it's the successor.
And tell us about Foursquare.
We've announced the successor to Nobility, but it's not out. So the successor
and tell
to
us a little
Nobility
bit
is
about Foursquare, because I think for me, Foursquare is the rum if you're a whiskey guy, girl, child. The Foursquare is the rum that probably will push you into rum, because it is the closest kind of in terms of style, in terms of complexity, in terms of interest, in terms of actually the language even. And
I mean, when you a whiskey consumer is a natural consumer for rum. For example, when we talk about like spice rum category could be gin for all I care. It means nothing.
Gin.
A lot of people don't actually realize that when we go out sort of marketing our brands, we don't go after, people say, well, spice rum's growing. And it's like, you could as well tell me gin's growing. Or we don't go after the sugary brands. I mean, I'm not trying to win over the Zacapa drinker. He's not my audience. He or she is not my audience. And the whiskey drinker is my audience, not because of any flavor similarity. Although obviously if we use similar cash, you're going to have similar flavors. It's more about the the triggers of quality were the same. So the nature of the complexity is the same. The length and the grip is, you know, all those triggers in Scotch whiskey are going to be triggers in rum. And so if you're a person who appreciates really good Scotch whiskey, you're not going to have a hard time picking out the best rums. And all of those triggers that you enjoy, you know, they're gonna be, you know, come with a different profile. Like we just mentioned there, Nobility has a sugary hit. Yeah, that's kind of the tragedy of adding sugar to rum. I mean, to me, you can make a bigger case for adding sugar to whiskey. Great rum has a very sort of mental trick that it's sugary sweet. Because it triggers the flavors triggered from the raw material, make you feel that it's that sort of caramelized molasses, that kind of caramelized brown sugar notes. And the natural sweetness of rum is really something to treasure. And of course, from the time you add sugar to it, you've destroyed any hope of doing that. I mean, we do one spice rum, as you know, Foursquare Spice, and it has no vanilla in it. It must be one of the only spice rums out there that have no vanilla in it. And so, I mean, people ask me, well, how come you didn't put any vanilla in it? I said, well, because it's got an aged rum in it, and you won't appreciate the vanilla from the aged rum.
And I do think you know, for me, I'm a retailer. I'm someone that's kind of looking at the consumer from quite a few different angles, and I don't have a problem with adding sugar because I do think it brings a consumer in that's different. But you know, I think also at the same time, you know, for me, your rums are very pure, and they really speak to the cognac consumer, the rum consumer, the whiskey consumer, the Armagnac consumer. You know, they're spirits that have character and they have complexity. And we talk a lot about complexity, and especially in the last, you know, all of you are drinkers.
No, I mean,
you drink.
The thing that not that we want to get on the sugar topic, but no, the thing about the sugar topic for me is about identity. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. You could give me a product like, for example, Dos Madeiras, and you could give me this and just say, what do you think of this as a spirituous drink? 9 out of 10. It's fabulous. It's got great rum in it. It's got great sherry in it. But if I'm sitting and judging in a competition and that comes up in the premium rum category, that's getting 3 out of 10. So
I totally agree with you. Context is important. Transparency is important.
And the other reason why I mentioned that one too is the sweetness is coming. The sweetness is coming from something really excellent, sherry. One of the problems is there's so many of the sweetened rums out there. They're just sweetened by, well, they do have some sweet wine, but they're also boosted with just sugar syrup. So they're just flat. So, you know, people enjoy them because, you know, we love sugary sweet things, but it's the problem with it is, again, it's not that it's, you know, the problem is not the sweetness. The problem is they're charging you, you know, super premium price for a product is
it's a tough one, and I think it's probably a debate that will probably rage for the next 200 years. Yeah. When we're in a coffin, we're still going to be talking about sugar and rum, and you know, and I think for me that, you know, it's something that I guess you look at it this way: you either like it or you don't like it, and it's as simple as that. But
and one of the things that I would also mention, and this is cultural, is we really shouldn't be having a discussion about sugar and rum. Because why? Is there any of your sessions discussing sugar and whiskey? No, because all the historic and traditional producers do not put sugar in whiskey. Well, all the historic and traditional producers do not put sugar in rum. The conversation is only coming up because of novel producers who've taken advantage of lax rules, lax identity, lax standards. So suddenly we have a conversation forced upon us.
And I guess, you know, and I guess that's kind of almost in the same way, and bringing it back to the wine cask thing in whiskey, that, you know, it's not a natural thing for me in whiskey. I don't want wine casks in my whiskey unless they're done really, really well and they're using the right casks, and, you know, and
But what if it's 100% sherry cask, aged completely in sherry cask? For
And
me,
that's then that's actually fine. I don't have a problem. Ooh, what is a spiced rum? Ooh, that's a. Yeah. Do you know actually, Andrew? And I love, and Andrew is one of our fantastic virtual friends. I guess I'm going to say, because he's come to a lot of our tastings, and I hope you're enjoying the rums, Andrew, because I know you were really interested to try this, and and I think that's a very pests. You are not pests. I love you, Andrew. I think that's a very good question because, as Richard says, the Dorley spiced is a proper spiced. Foursquare spice, sorry, is a proper spice because it's natural. It's macerated. It's not added essence. And I am actually probably about as negative to spiced rum as I am to any freaking flavored gin. For me, there are people that do it really well, and so basically a spiced rum is someone that's added flavor to rum. Oh, sorry, did I say that? Sorry, I'm so bad. I should behave myself. But I think that there's people that can do it credibly in the same way as people can create a flavored gin credibly. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that all flavored gin is bad, because there's some very, very good examples of it when they've done it in a natural way. It's the people that do, I won't name any names, hemp spiced rum, which tastes like pond scum, and I want to throw up after tasting it, that are just putting flavor in, and they're just adding essence, and that's not good for anyone. If you're going to make something incredible. Sorry, that's my rant over. Sorry, I sounded like Richard there for 5 minutes. Whew, what's going on?
But that's how I even feel about the sweet stuff. If you love sweet stuff, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with loving sweet stuff, go out and buy a sherry or a port or a Madeira or a Sauterre. Go buy the top stuff. Go buy the great sweet products. Don't buy some rum that's just been somebody put sugar syrup.
Richard never speaks his mind. He's very quiet, retired.
Go buy a beautiful Madeira. I mean, there's nothing wrong with liking sweet. Just don't overpay for it, or pay for something that's genuinely brilliant.
PX sherry. Should we talk about PX sherry? I love PX sherry. And I'm actually just tasting the 08 Foursquare, which I haven't had. I basically, the boys at Mauritius sent me some 08, and I drank it in about a week. It kind of sat on my desk, and I was having a bad week, and it kind of just disappeared. So this is the first time I've tasted it in about a month and a bit. And it is stunning, and as I said, every time Richard makes a new vintage, I'm like, it's not going to be as good as the last one. I really loved it, 07, and then the fucker produces something I like even more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite pleased with that, because from my perspective, 2004 was, it was the first time we put a cask strength sort of on the American market. It was first. So we were, I would say, a little more timid, and 05 was kind of like another step in that direction, and kind of 07 and 08 are where we're kind of, I think, the truest expressions of vintage Foursquare. But people have preferences for 04 and 5, and that's fine, because just because your preference is slightly different than my preference, is perfectly okay. Or it's not really my preference, but it's more my, as I say, what I think is sort of really, because we want the idea with the vintage as opposed to the name ones. We kind of wanted that to be the kind of what we're saying. This is quintessential Foursquare, and everything else is us having a bit of push in a different direction, a nobility or an Emprey or whatever. And so it's not so much I'm saying 07 is better than 05, but I'm saying 07 is more at the core of what we do. Whereas 05 was like, okay, well, I got to, this kind of a little bit, well, I got to make it for the audience. Whereas 07, 08, I'm like,
it's just like, well, I don't care about my public. So, fuck them. I'm just going to make a run.
Yeah, and so I'm actually a little surprised that the 08 has had such a phenomenal reception, And it's good, and I'm got obviously I mean happy for that. Um, Again, the thing to realize as well about our rums is you know, the vintages are 100% ex bourbon cask. But again, one of the things that we're doing there is we're using not just first fill ex bourbon. So we're using seconds and thirds. And it's one of the reasons why whiskey guys can never get any rum casks from me, because my older rum casks play a very important role in the rums I do. And we will put different rums in different casks. So the rum that goes in a first fill ex bourbon is not the rum that goes in a 10-year-old ex bourbon.
I think that's what I'd love to address Rosie's comment, actually. Hey, Rosie, how you doing? Good to see you. I'm presuming, Rosie, you're asking about adding water to a cask strength rum, is what I'm guessing. And you know, Richard, what's your thoughts on that? You know, like.
Well, you mean from the so from the point of view, you know, if you write the word cask strength on the label in Scotch whiskey, you can't.
No. It's about sort of adding water to the glass. So you know, in whiskey, when you add a bit of water to a cask.
Oh yes. In other words, the idea when we do a cask, well, actually, that's still a little background to that. So whenever I do a cask strength, I've actually added a few drops, because I have not yet come across a rum where I take it out of the cask, whether it's the vintages or whatever, and I go and I put a little bit of water and I go, ooh, I think I prefer that. So 08, it's at 60. It'll come out of the cask at about 61, 62, something like that. So yes, when you get it, but that doesn't mean your palate aligns with mine. So therefore, when you get it, by all means, have your little dropper. But that's the whole point. Have a dropper. The last thing I want to see happen is you take that and, you know, bring it down to 40%. I will cringe. I mean, I do see some of my Foursquare fans, and they'll, you know, take something like a Doherty's 12 and put huge amounts of ice in it, and I just cringe. And I can't cringe because these are my customers. But I really am cringing. Because I can't. So you know, Richard has the worst poker face ever.
So you'll just see Richard doing this. And then he'll just wander off to the side because he doesn't want to have the conversation. But, you know, it's like anything, you know, Rosie, it's like anything. You know, when you're going to add water to something, water releases phenols, water releases flavor. And that doesn't change whether it's a rum, whether it's a whiskey, whether it's a gin, whatever, you know, those drops of water are going to tell you something different about the spirit. And so, you know, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, it's going to change,
so, you know, do it a little bit, because, you know, not all of us want to drink cask strength. You know, I'm hardcore, you know, I'm like.
But that's the other point with the water dropper, is where the alcohol. So everyone has a little different sensitivity. So what will happen is that, you know, some of us will, you know, be smacking it back at 60% and wondering, you know, why didn't I not, you know, make it stronger? But for some people, just bringing it to 2 or 3 points down, because the whole point about it is to enjoy it. And that will bring me to one of my points that sort of drives me, and I think drives most whiskey blenders, is, you know, the greatest thing you can do, I think, for pleasure, in terms of sitting around neat and drinking, let's say, quite a bit of it, is balance and softness. And so if there's two signatures I want always with Foursquare, is balance and softness. And the reason is softness is just because if it's not soft, it's, you know, we're going to sit with it, but it's going to be a little jarring. And balance is all, it keeps us going through the bottle. I mean, the amount of people who come to me and say, well, you know, I popped open a bottle of Foursquare or whatever, and shit, we drunk it, you know, me and my guys, and we finished the whole bloody thing the night. And that's balance. You can get a rum that's brilliant, but then, or a whiskey that's brilliant, but if it's not so well balanced, you know, after you go into it a little bit, that very forward flavor is going to be now, okay, well, I've had enough for tonight. And
no, but
I mean, that's kind of a bad thing. I make you drink more, but that's part of the enjoyment. So that's one of the reasons why you seek to have these to have balance, because it does make for that, and what happens too is as you drink something well balanced, you start to peel it away a little bit. You start to now, 2-3 glasses in, you sort of discover something that you didn't discover.
And I think that's it. It's about, I've said all the way through the last couple of sessions, I don't buy product because I want one glass of it. I buy product because I want to drink the goddamn bottle. And
yes.
and that's it. I never.
But don't get me wrong, there's also an audience for that kind of product where, something super intense.
Parker wines is the best example. Robert Parker made his name with these massive, massive wines, which, my God, you open the bottle and you were like, one glass, I was like under the table, like, oh my God, my palate.
No, this is why I always prefer Burgundies to Bordeaux. I mean, give me my soft Burgundies, because I like to drink actually when I'm cooking. Not only that, that's one of the times I'll drink wine when I'm cooking.
Is that why you put a pie on your pie?
A nice soft Pinot Noir. No.
I love you. Thanks, Daria. But and I think that's it. It's about, and I'm super glad that actually Andrew's hit the diadem, and I'd like to talk about this one because we can tell the whole funny.
So can we tell our whole funny story with diadem?
No, you're telling it.
No, you got to tell that story. You got to tell it.
I'll get myself in trouble. You tell it, and I wouldn't get as much in trouble. Now, come on, you tell.
Well,
we're like, you tell, me tell, you tell, me tell. Okay, so I'm not going to tell the story. Richard's going to tell the story, but I am going to tell you. When I joined the Whiskey Exchange, I think Richard and I have been developing a friendship over many years, and I don't even remember how it happened that we started saying, okay, I think I went to him at Rumfest. I was like, I want my own rum. Luca gets his own rum. I want my own rum. Because Luca
and that's it. And that's it. I mean, that's how it, that's kind of how it went, Luca started to get his rums, and like Triptych had Madeira. And so like the first one's Criterion was Madeira. And then I did Patrimonio for Luca with sherry. So I did sherry Hereditas for Sekinda. And so then I did Plenipotenziario bourbon cask for Luca, and I was going to do another bourbon cask.
And this
for
was
Sekinda,
genius because I really loved it.
it.
I loved it. So Richard sent a sample, and I literally emailed Richard, like it turned up on my desk. I was like, I really love this. And then I went up to Sekinda, and Sekinda, who I know is watching, was like, no, I'm not. And, and I love Sekinda very dearly. Sekinda's one of my best friends. Richard's one of my best friends. And it was almost like, how do I tell my parents they're divorcing?
So anyhow, so the long and short was Sekinda wanted something, for lack of a better word, more sweet. He wanted it more sweet. So I was like, Madeira cask to the rescue. And the thing about diadem is we deliberately then made diadem really soft. I really tried to make it. And I remember, we did the bottling and put away we sent it off. And then, after the bottling, sometimes I'll pull a bottle out, put it on my desk and sort of put it on the board table. And, because it's after the bottling and you're also checking after the bottling, make sure it's, so and I tasted the diadem. And then every single time I went through that room, I just kept going back. Shit, this fucking thing is drinking really good because it's so sort of Moorish, which is kind of really
whereas,
Sekinda.
So I kind of equate it to this.
Yes.
I liked the rum that was like the Nebbiolo, the Barolo, which was like, I want to hurt you big time. Like it was like Dictador, but without the women and the shit uniforms and the whips and the leather, and it tasted good. It kind of wanted it hurt you. The first sample hurt you, but it was so good, and I loved it. It was savory and I think it's probably the first time that Sakinda and I have ever disagreed on a cask, ever. And
What is he always doing something? So I done Plenipotentiary for Luca, this big, full body, very oily run. So I had to do something big and full bodied and oily and tannic for Sakinda because it was like, you got to keep the two of them happy. And so of course I went the complete opposite with Diadem. As I say, for me to keep stopping and keep pouring it out all day, it was like, shit, this Diadem is, it's just seductive. And of course, you're supposed to go for the big oily
and this was the funny thing. So when it turned up on my desk, I was like, I don't want to like it. I don't want to like it. I'm not liking it because I like the other one. And actually, I have been really good with my bottle because I'm not going to tell anyone, but the entree team asked me for a sample. I was like, I don't have any left. I may have lied. May have lied because I want. I've 30 more cases on the water.
That was the other thing.
And actually, it was kind of one of those things that.
Yeah.
I think the more I look at, because as Richard knows, I love Madeira. And Richard actually has a cask with something else that I'm very excited by, and I think he's going to give it to Luca, and I'm going to cry because. Well, yeah, that's kind of exciting. I love Calvados.
Do you want Calvados?
And it's very funny. Luca and I think now are in war. The
Muscat.
The Muscat.
Which is the other one?
I want that. And Richard's like, you have to wait 8 years. I was like, I'm not.
No, the Muscat. My oldest Muscat is. It was 5 years.
Yeah,
put in
I'm getting there.
It's 10 years this year. My oldest stuff.
Can I have it?
Just get in there. Yeah, it's going to come in another year or two.
Can I have the Muscat?
The Calvados still has a few more years to go.
And it's kind of like one of those
things. Good. It's pretty good. And last year I did finally one that Jim Swan had wanted me to do. Always felt it would work.
Marsala
was
and we've talked about this. We've actually talked about this in the past because I love Marsala, and I think Marsala is one of the, like Madeira, it's one of those underrated fortified wines that actually proper Marsala, not cooking Marsala, which is shite, but proper Marsala from like Bertram, or one of the Bertram are probably my favorite. But there's so much intensity.
When we first did rum and sherry cask, which Jim is who guided me on it. The next one we wanted to do was Marsala, but the Marsala cask, obviously it's a small production and not so available, and of course the obvious one we jumped straight on was Madeiras. But yes, I finally did some Marsala. So
Richard is now going to agree to give me as an exclusive.
I can't remember what he did.
Go on, Richard. Yay!
The Marsala? I can promise anything now.
Can everyone just note that down, please, that Richard has agreed to give me some Marsala exclusive. So it's interesting. I mean,
the one I'm quite excited about.
I'm always slightly dubious about using. I mean, sweet wines I totally get because actually there's a little bit more concentration. There is more richness, and I would be interested to see you working with Tokai or sweet.
Okay, I'd always put off doing Sauternes for this simple reason. It was for me, it's sort of a deadly combination that it was, a sweet, well, not a fortified wine, so so it's not got the protection of the alcohol, and worse, it's got the sugar. So I always figured the Sauternes cask would turn up disaster, but we worked out a little protocol with the chateau and some hot water.
And you know, and I think it's really interesting. I had a fantastic chat with Dr. Bill Lumsden a couple of weeks ago, and we were really talking about wine casks because Dr. Bill's very passionate about wine, and this is going back to a talk that we're doing actually a bit later in the week where we're talking about the provenance of the cask. And for me, that is hugely important. And we've got an amazing panel for that. We've got Dr. Magali from Demtos. We've got Olivier Humbrecht, who not only is one of the best Alsace producers out there, but also a real whiskey nerd. Ken Forrester, who makes some of the best wines in South Africa, some Shennons and some Shirazes. And John Glazer, of course, from Compass Box. And I'm super excited for that because I do think it's all about where you source and how you take care of that barrel all the way through. And I'm
yes, yeah, exactly. I had to work out with them, so pre-treatment from them, and then of course you want to make sure that your pre-treatment doesn't ruin it. And then so when the cask came, beautiful, the nose on them is perfect. One of the benefits of putting a little steam into when they come, if there's any kind of off note and you put steam in a cask with a bit of off note, you'll fill the whole distillery with that off note. So they were great, and we did both. We filled both.
I'll be again really. I mean, I always watch everything you do with interest, and I'm always excited to see what's coming up. I mean, we got to talk about the next TWE exclusive next year. We always got to keep on trucking, as my mom says. And you know what? One of my favorite comments tonight is Andrew. I'm a convert to rum. I did not appreciate how smooth the spirit could be. It has had a rough reputation, pirates and all, but this has been a great tasting experience. And I think, I guess my modus operandi is one convert at a time is enough for me, because one convert actually gives me 10, 20 converts. And I think Foursquare has been a big instrument. It's been my tool for conversion. For those of you that know me.
Well, one of the things that we're doing too is that we're focusing more on whiskey audience and whiskey show. So that's why. Well, you remember when the idea was born for putting rum at whiskey show at a
I have the photos
drinking session at the Savoy a couple of years, and of course, for me it's like mission accomplished, because the idea was we'll have it as a guest category, and of course I knew once I'm in that.
And what was brilliant is, last year I was with Richard Patterson on Friday. We did a session with Greg, and I said, the best thing about Whiskey Show last year is I had two dicks on stage. and Richard did this brilliant session. And I mean, you couldn't put two more different people on stage together. You had Richard Patterson, who is possibly the most outgoing sort of like fireball out there. And then Richard, who was just looking at Richard just laughing. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen you laugh quite so much.
Well, it's a little bit like when I'm with Luca as well, Luca, you just sort of stand back and you're...
No, Luca is very well behaved with me.
Audience,
Luca and I now, we have an understanding. I have the buzzer. And I think that's what it's about, isn't it? It's about having fun, and it's about enjoying, and it's about discovery. And I hope, I guess we probably should wrap up the session because I'm already 15 minutes over, but I never knew. I know. And also I know that I can stay on the session now. So if we were on the main stage, it would have kicked you out 15 minutes ago. But I guess... No, I never do. Do you know, I am now on my... I might be on my 11th or 12th session, and I've really beautifully typed up all these questions, yet to keep to any of them. I mean, yes. I did the sustainability talk today, and the guys were pissing themselves at me because I was just like, So I might go on a slight tangent at some point. So just don't worry if I do. And like 5 seconds in, I was off on some really random tangent that had absolutely nothing to do with sustainability. So I don't even know why I bothered preparing, because frankly, I was just never going to follow anything. And, you know, that's kind of it. Damn. No, I mean, absolutely, Richard, I love you with all my heart and soul, and you know that. And Andrew, we have a convert, Richard. Make rum great again.
One at a time.
But yeah, no, thank you so much, Richard. And I love seeing you. And you can go have your pie now. Pie.
No,
Pie.
Yes. No, it's great. I mean, what you guys have done, considering you're not able to do your show, is just been incredible. Well, you only just started, and you got me. And for those you don't know, Dawn has me doing a session on legislation.
And Richard just said, "Is this how much you hate me?" And I was like, "This is payback." And I was laughing. Me and Dave were laughing yesterday. Because the problem was I have to have someone from Japan, and I have to have someone from Barbados, and I have to have someone from Scotland. And I was like, who do I like more? Jota Tanaka in Japan? Or do I just take the piss out of Richard? I know, I just take the piss out of Richard. And I remember emailing Dave, and Dave was like, this is going to be a logistical nightmare. I was like, don't worry, Richard's up at that time, because I messaged him at that time.
No, I was going to say it's actually slightly better.
I've been really good. I almost dialed you last night. I've been really well. Richard normally gets drunk dialed by me at 2 in the morning to talk absolute crap at him. And I actually just talk at him. And Richard, what I think Richard does is he answers it. I mean, God knows why he fucking answers it in the first place. But then he just leaves it on his desk and wanders off and just lets me talk.
No, not quite. You might say something important.
I
go on the next day, you're saying, well, you remember that?
Which I have been known to
you
do.
Promised me.
No, Richard, I absolutely love you, and thank you so much. And as always, you know, I'm gonna just drink everything else now and then go to sleep, because this is my last session.
So hopefully next year we'll be back to normal. As much as they say, as much as you guys have really turned a real negative into an amazing.
Yeah, I want my hug. For fuck's sake. I know. Do you know why Richard wants the real one? He wants the Dawn hug. Best hugs in the world, Richard. Come on, admit it on camera. Yes.
You remember that time that I ran from you?
But the other day, he actually got upset. So last whiskey show, he got upset because I went and hugged Miguel, I went and hugged Danny, I went and hugged Angela, and then Richard was like, "What? I'm the last person?" So Richard's like, right. "I'm leaving now before she comes."
We'll let everyone go.
No, go and eat your pie. I love you.
I'm gonna go
guys.
Have my
thank you so much for joining us. And tomorrow we've got some really awesome rum sessions tomorrow. So if anyone's in tomorrow, I'm talking about the new color of rum with my wonderful Daniele and my wonderful Angelo from Velier, who are two of the boys I love. That Danny taught me so much about rum, and he's probably the person that's the most responsible for my abysmal rum knowledge. And then I think I have another session after about rum. We've got a couple sessions on rum tomorrow, and we've got some really, really fun sessions coming up on rum. So please, guys, join. But thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. Night, 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 night.